Well, all right, we have a couple of things that have been front burner on the discussions lately in the national realm when it comes to drugs. One of them being Jeff Sessions' obsession with marijuana. Obviously, that's getting to pretty much be household common knowledge. And then the other, I mean, in that, you have him questioning whether or not marijuana could help with the opioid crisis that we're having in this country. Clearly, he's definitely misguided when saying that there's, that you're trading one life of addiction for another that's only slightly less awful or whatever. We all know that that's crazy and that's goofy and that's bullshit. Anybody with any common sense or anybody who doesn't live under a fucking rock knows that we have a serious problem in this country with pills and with overprescribing of opioids. We have overabundance of this fentanyl on the streets that they keep claiming is illicitly produced or whatever, but we keep seeing evidence that the cat has been let out of the bag by companies like Insys Therapeutics, for example, who lobbied so that they could dump more of this shit on the public last year. And furthermore, they also just went ahead and had their sales reps out in the fields basically pushing doctors to tell patients to lie to their insurance companies and the DEA about their medical conditions so that they could get fentanyl, and that so that these drug pushers can push more fentanyl out there. Fentanyl surpassed heroin as far as overdose deaths a while back, and heroin's only more recently came back to kind of make a resurgence, I guess you would call it. And I think why that is because the whoever you want to call it, the government, the public itself, everybody's saying, whoa, slow down on these prescriptions. People are dying left and right from Oxycontin, fentanyl, morphine, methadone, Vicodin, for Christ's sake. Like, you got people dropping dead from these pills and these ridiculously concentrated opioids every day. Thousands of people a year, tens of thousands of people a year are just dropping dead. And we're not getting any solutions for that. So maybe to help these people come out of their addiction, that's one way that marijuana could help. But it could also help in the regards that you don't have to prescribe them that shit in the first place. You can prescribe them something much safer and much less addictive if you even consider it addictive at all. Well, let's just say that it is even a little addictive. It's only as addictive as like caffeine or nicotine. So quitting that isn't going to kill you like it might with quitting these opioids or a relapse. Relapses are the most deadly thing because somebody that has quit these opioids for a long time, well, they come back, and when they do it, they do the dose that they're familiar with, and it kills them because their body's not used to it. So we ask these questions. We also have this problem of enforcement of the problem. What do you do about enforcing the drug laws? Is that helping? We've seen it fail time and time again when you're talking about cracking down on illegal drugs or making drugs illegal in the first place. You're basically just going after the users and the ground level dealers. You're not focusing on people that actually bring tons of this shit into the country. You're not focusing on the people that are manufacturing the synthetics. You're not focusing enough on the production of actual opioids that are killing people more than heroin. So you're not even focusing on the problem at all by just saying, oh, drugs are illegal. If you don't have a prescription, we're gonna bust you, and if we catch you selling, we're gonna be hard on you and all this shit. That doesn't do anything to go at the heart of the problem. There's a lot of things that you can do to go at the heart of the problem. You got to figure out why people are doing drugs in the first place. And with heroin, it's clear that they had to get a start somewhere. There was some kind of a gateway that led them to heroin. And 80% of all heroin users will say that, yeah, I started out with a prescription for painkillers, some kind of an opioid painkiller, and it just something happened after that. Either the doctors stopped prescribing, which these days that's a lot of times what they're doing. Look at Florida. They had a whole pill mill system going on where they had these pain management clinics where you just go in there and get hooked up with a doctor. He'll give you whatever you want, and you go about your business. Well, they got rid of those, apparently. It took them a while, but they got rid of them. And what replaced them? Heroin. So now instead of 30, 40 people a week overdosing and dying from these painkillers, these opioids that the doctors are prescribing people, well, now they're just coming in there dead from heroin. And the same thing like that, that's happening all over the country. People are getting prescribed less opioids because the federal government has made new rules and the DEA is clamping down on the actual patients. So, or a doctor can only prescribe so much to each patient or whatever. And, if they go above the number, then it sets off a red flag. So there is really a situation where they are reeling in the amount of prescriptions that they're writing and the amount of pills overall that are getting put out into the public sphere that way has been reduced. And some of this gets blamed on states with medical marijuana. Because like I said earlier, it might be another way to divert people from ever getting addicted to the opioids in the first place is to just start off with medical marijuana for chronic pain or whatever pain they have. They just got in a car wreck or something, or got a tooth pulled. Instead of jumping right into hydrocodone or Oxycontin or fentanyl patches or suckers or whatever, start them out with some RSO or something, man. Something that can't kill you and something that you could quit if you had to. It ain't gonna kill you to quit it. So I got a couple of things here. We got a bunch of articles that came out about a week or two ago talking about this. Can marijuana, help with the opioid epidemic? Well, let's see. This is out of Columbus, Ohio. We have some people there that feel like maybe it can't. So you have John Kasich, who told Time Magazine he did not believe medical marijuana will stop the state's opioid epidemic, but cannabis supporters think it could stop the cycle of addiction. Cannabis supporters said marijuana would be a safer way to treat chronic pain. Hello. Quote, they come to me saying, Doc, I do not want to take these pills anymore. That's their main goal, said Dr. Dustin Saluk, a main osteopathic physician who prescribes medical marijuana to many of his patients. Quote, they know these pills are making them dependents, making them addicts. Sullick said nearly half of his patients stopped using opioids altogether after they started using cannabis. Now with me, I have 5 patients. All 5 of my patients no longer take their opioids. And I have a lady that's over 60 years old, and then I got a Vietnam vet. He's probably, 65, maybe closer to 70. And yeah, neither of them take or are prescribed opioids anymore. We had the lady, she was on hydrocodone, and then the Vietnam vet guy, he was on just regular. She was on Percocets, he was on Vicodin. I don't know. I'm not sure if there's a whole lot of difference between the two. I'm not an expert on pills. I just know that I'm glad to hear that they don't take those anymore. And both of them had health complications from being on these prescriptions for multiple decades. I don't know if they even. I think the laws are set up now so that you can't actually be on these pills for multiple decades. Well, anyway, back to the story. Most of them are prescribed these pills by their doctors for pain. The reason why is the doctors don't have better options. There really isn't no other option. It's either opioids or something that don't have opioids in it that don't work as good. And, you hear about these other things over the years that they've tried. None of them are still around. The only thing that's really still around is Vicodins and, hydrocodone, codeine, fentanyl, the synthetics. And, yeah, you wonder why. You wonder what the efficacy is. Whoever proved that there was efficacy in treating chronic pain with opioids? We know that it treats pain. That's it. It's like, it's obvious as hell. Morphine can make it so somebody that just got their leg blown off in combat don't hurt. So, yeah, we know it treats pain. But what about somebody who has a bad back? Should we give them opioids for 40, 50 years? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, man. He tried to share his experience with other doctors around the country, and they said they don't know a whole lot about it. There's no coverage of this in their medical school. There's no coverage of this anywhere. It's because the medical world wants this to go away. They want medical marijuana to go away. They want to prove it's bad somehow, which they can't do. Then they want to say it's bad because there's mold and fungus in it. Well, whatever their excuse is, the pharmaceutical industry was built on the back of the fact that everything that they made was fixing new ailments that were popping up because people weren't using cannabis anymore. I mean, it's pretty bad when you think about it, because big pharma they've never had a cure for anything. All they're selling is a bunch of Band-Aids, and they're not even selling a healthy lifestyle with it. Suppose you get cancer, or you find out you have cancer, and you go to the doctor. The first thing he should do is send you to a nutrition specialist. Never happens. They never want you to change your lifestyle that might have helped contribute to the fact that you have cancer. They don't want you to change that. They just want you to keep having cancer and keep getting their treatment. Kasich isn't the only skeptic. Marcy Seidel with the Drug Free Action Alliance in Columbus said there's no easy fix to the heroin epidemic. Now, this lady, Marcy Seidel, she was also picked to be on the medical marijuana board in Ohio. So I want you people in Ohio to let that sink in while I read some of her stuff, all right? You ought to know who's running your bullshit program. Your program in Ohio is one of the worst medical marijuana programs I've seen. When you didn't vote for that 10 company takeover Republican-based legalization shit in 2016, I don't blame you, man. Or was that 2016? That was 2014. Whatever it was, I don't blame you. That shit was garbage, and no one should monopolize the marijuana industry. Anyway, here's what she's got to say about it. Quote, "We've put too much stock in medical marijuana being the panacea for almost every disease and condition," she said. "Well, that's because it works, you dumbass." She said marijuana has its own flaws as a treatment, and more research is needed to see how it affects people with different diseases. That's always the go-to line. Oh, we need more research. We do. We do need more research. So we need the DEA, we need the FDA, we need the University of Mississippi, we need the National Institute on Drug Abuse. We need all of them people to let it happen and quit being assholes about it. Quit trying to put like roadblocks in the way, or here's the weed you get to use to do your experiments with, and then they give you some parsley mixed with oregano. Come on, man. So we're not accepting your line that we need more research. We have done our own research. The research has been done all over the world. Research has been done in Israel. Research has been done in Denmark. Research has been done in Germany. Research has been done all over the world, from South America to Russia. Medical marijuana research has been done everywhere, incidentally, except here, because we have to adhere to the bullshit rules that they give us, and quite frankly, the bullshit weed that they give us to use to experiment with. So they've sabotaged experimenting on medical marijuana in America pretty much since they put a patent out saying that it is medicine. So the U.S. government has a patent that is pretty all-inclusive, that basically says marijuana is medicine, and every compound that they know about in it is medicinal. So what the fuck are they talking about? I'm sick of it. We don't need no more research. You're just somebody that's set there to destroy medical marijuana in Ohio. And now she's on your board of the medical marijuana program in Ohio, trying to make decisions for it. So we'll see if that fails or not. Quote, "There could be other alternatives to take a look at," she said. Now this is what really pisses me off. Quote, "I know that physical therapy is one that we need to look at, perhaps acupuncture, any number of things we can look at to curb the pain. I'm a pain sufferer myself. And the one thing I hate about people that don't have pain is that they always say stuff like this. Like, if you don't go through pain, if you don't have chronic pain, then you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. All right? You don't know what people have to go through every day. And now you're talking about the heroin epidemic. You guys thought this article was about medical marijuana or something, right? No, this was about, could it help with the heroin epidemic? Well, she thinks acupuncture and physical therapy might be able to help you. Tell that to a fucking heroin addict, all right? Somebody that was given prescription for painkillers because they broke their arm or had a tooth pulled. Now all of a sudden they're hooked on heroin. They don't even care about their pain that they started out with anymore. That's probably not even an issue. So why don't you look at that instead of just acting like we're talking about medical marijuana because it's a pain reliever? It is. It's way better than prescribing opioids. But you're acting like you're going to prescribe somebody some acupuncture or physical therapy. Someone needs to take this lady's job away from her. All right, Ohio, your medical marijuana program is garbage, and the people that are running your program are going to make it fail as hard as they can, but they're still going to try to make money off of whatever don't fail. And then you have Men's Health Magazine, who also has an article about it. And opioid abuse continues to be a national discussion. A new study has revealed less people are hospitalized for opioid abuse in the United States where medical marijuana, or in the states where medical marijuana is legalized. The study, published Saturday in the Journal of Drug and Alcohol Dependence, tallied hospital discharges in 27 states from 1997 to 2014. Where medicinal cannabis is legal, hospitalizations caused by opioid dependence dropped by 23%, and those caused by opioid overdoses dropped by 11%. For those states with actual dispensaries in operation, the figures are 13 and 11. Hospitalizations caused by cannabis did not increase in states with medical marijuana. Let me read that again in case you prohibitionists didn't get that one, didn't get the memo. Hospitalizations caused by cannabis did not increase in states with medical marijuana. The author of the study is Yuan Shi, an assistant professor of family medicine and public health at the University of California in San Diego. He said of his findings, it is still premature to advocate medical marijuana legalizations as a strategy to curb the POR abuse and overdose epidemic, but the policymakers should take into consideration these positive unintended consequences while legalizing medical marijuana. These findings presented in the study merit further investigation, especially to those who understand the causal pathways. Exactly, the causal pathways, the causes for people to become addicted to opioids and heroin. Generally speaking, they are because their doctors had no choice but to give them opioids. And that's what we've been saying. That's kind of like the overall theme of this clip so far, is that there's doctors out there that know about medical marijuana and how it can help pain. And then there's, they're trying to get the word out. And then there's people like Mary Seidel or whatever her name is, who know it, but they don't want that to happen because obviously they're shilling for the big pharma or somebody. I don't know. Maybe she's shilling for big acupuncture or big physical therapy. I've been to physical therapy offices before. Pretty sure they don't need any help getting customers, man. There's waiting lists to get into them. All right. There's a medical problem that marijuana might be able to help that no one is talking about. And this High Sobriety is the name of the place. It's a Southern California rehab center where this guy, Frank, their so-called Frank, he's an alcoholic. And now he's using marijuana to beat his alcohol addiction. Now, that's pretty freaking powerful stuff in itself. This guy is like 73-year-old recovering alcoholic. Marijuana is going to help him. I think somebody might want to look at that. A month ago, he was living alone and drinking round the clock. Ooh. And he had drug interactions between the drugs he had to take for high blood pressure and other age-related health issues. You might know, alcohol is just about every prescription that you look at, it says do not take while consuming alcohol or don't consume alcohol while taking. So basically, high sobriety is, and I kind of looked into this a little bit. It's kind of expensive to go there. But yeah, I mean, basically, help addicts stop abusing the substances that are causing them the most harm, using cannabis as a tool to do so. Because I think the no-brainer here is that cannabis has never been that addictive drug that caused somebody a lot of harm in their life, So obviously it can be used as a tool. And it's not like Sessions said, because it's only a little bit less agonizing than the drug that you might be addicted to. No, it's actually really good. It's not addictive, but when you do marijuana, it kind of, it's you feel good. You're not like, it's not a negative thing like alcohol. Alcohol kind of brings out the negativity. So what is the deal with it? Does it work or not? Okay, he says our retention rates are so much better when you're giving them something. Like you can't take away something that someone's addicted to, be like, okay, you got to stop doing this altogether, and then just leave that big void in their life. With marijuana, you give them something to fill that void. So I guess that's like the summary of a lot of the things that this guy's trying to say. The guy that started this place, more or less, doesn't do drugs himself, isn't a smoker of marijuana. And he also, here's a quote from Lisa Schrank. She was also involved, and Maya Slaves, a neuroscientist, journalist, and author of Unbroken Brain, Revolutionary New Way of Understanding Addiction. Quote, the stuff that emphasizes this morality. Let me go up a little bit more. He disapproves of AA and other similar programs that portray drinking and using drugs as moral problems. That approach is out of touch with science, he says. I never think of drug use as any kind of moral thing, Shrike says. Actually, I like drug use, although it didn't really work out for me. And then this author of Unbroken Brain says, the stuff that emphasizes this morality, we don't have anything else like it in medicine. She was a former heroin addict and an AA member. Quote, the 12-step thing talking about defects of character, that's not exactly helpful for someone who already has a lot of self-hatred. What are the 12 steps with the 12-step program? What are the 12 steps? When you look at this 12 steps, man, it doesn't look like it's really intended to help anybody get away from drugs, but more or less, it looks like it's trying to help you get closer to God or something. It's just all this stuff, all right, powerless over alcohol, and our lives have become unmanageable. That's probably true, but, you're just throwing it out. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. What are you talking about, man? Make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God? What are you talking about? What if, first of all, this is all garbage to me because I don't believe there is a God. This is just stupid. Maybe you're talking about some kind of higher power. What is that? If that's going to be the thing that helps somebody, I don't know, whatever. Making search and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. That's not bad to do for anybody, even if you're not a drug addict. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and other human beings, the exact nature of our wrongs. Why you got to bring God into it again? We are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. What the fuck are you talking about, man? Humbly ask Him, as in God again, to remove our shortcomings. All right, I can't read any more of this garbage, dude. If this is how you get somebody clean, you're just trading one addiction for another. You're trading somebody's addiction to a substance to an addiction to a fake deity in the sky you're supposed to fear this guy and feel bad when you betray his trust or some shit. Come on, man. AA is garbage. We know it's garbage. The success rate for AA is somewhere in the fucking 0 to 10% range. Meaning the only reason people stay clean is if they keep going to them fucking meetings every day, every week, twice a week or whatever. He says about 1 of every 15 people who enter these programs are able to become and stay sober. It's garbage, man. It is total garbage. I don't know how much, how good of a success rate this guy has over here at high sobriety, but I guarantee you it's more than just somebody that's like, oh man, I got forced to go to AA because I got pulled over drunk too many times and it's either AA or prison. I feel sorry for them people, or they lost everything they owned, so they live at the AA meeting room. Rolling Stone wrote a big article about this as well, and I'm not going to read all of this either, but yeah, basically, in New Mexico, we have this House Minority Leader, Representative Nate Gentry. Medical cannabis has a great potential as an opioid replacement drug, and we want to move people away from being prescribed highly addictive opioids. Now, they already have medical marijuana in New Mexico, so this seems like you should be able to transition, into the thinking of, okay, let's try to divert people that are addicts or people that are on high maintenance pain medication with rigorous pain medication schedules. Let's try to move them into something where they can actually enjoy their life. They have 35 licensed dispensaries for 33,000 patients. The program is established, says Gale. People continue to use marijuana here and lessen the stigma. Republican Governor Susana Martinez has until April 7th to decide whether her state becomes the first ever to legalize the use of medical marijuana to treat opioid addiction. Martinez, a former prosecutor turned two-term governor, has long been opposed to marijuana legislation. But the fate of the bill remains uncertain because of bipartisan support and statewide effort to curtail the opioid crisis while Martinez finishes her final year allowed in office. Quote, I hope the governor recognizes medical marijuana as a tool to help save lives, says Gale. No other solution is working. Overdose death rates are still going up. Naloxone works, but we need to find more proactive solution. Now, I believe that's the, if you die and someone happens to have that handy, they can stop you from completely dying or whatever. All right, it's pretty clean cut, and she would be a hero if she signed the bill. If Martinez vetoes the measure, advocates can direct final pleas to Lynn Gallagher, the Secretary of New Mexico's Department of Health, to sign a petition separate from the legislative process aimed to add opioid addiction to the state's existing 21 conditions of medical marijuana use. The author of the petition is Anita Willard Briscoe, a psychiatric nurse practitioner with a private practice in Albuquerque. Quote, heroin took over this area starting in the 1940s with the lowrider culture and then in the 1970s with the Vietnam veterans. I saw it absolutely ravage my hometown. I have a lot of high school classmates who died. Briscoe became a registered nurse in 1977 and a psychiatric nurse in 1992. In 2005, she became a nurse practitioner because she saw medical professionals, quote, misdiagnosing people, overprescribing pills, and patients were suffering as a result. After the state legalized medical marijuana in 2007, a colleague showed her its ability to help patients with PTSD, and she started referring patients to the state medical cannabis program in 2009. Last year, Briscoe teamed up with her cannabis prescribing colleagues, 2 other psychiatric nurse practitioners, and 1 psychiatrist, to collect self-reported data from 400 patients, and they found that many were successful at quitting opiates using cannabis. Between 2015 and 2016, Briscoe observed that 25% of her patients reported being able to kick opioids with marijuana. Quote, they state it calms down their cravings, relaxes their anxiety, and is helping to keep them off opioids. If they are in pain, cannabis is helping relieve their pain, often to the point that they don't need opiates anymore, a 2014 study published in the Journal of American Medical Associations. Sorry, I murdered that. Anyway, Internal Medicine, which examined data between 1999 and 2010, found that states with medical marijuana laws have 25% lower annual opioid overdose death rate compared to states without such laws. Briscoe's team is not looking to replace the use of methadone and Suboxone with marijuana completely, but rather to use cannabis as an adjunct to treatment. And New Mexico is not the only people looking for alternative ways to ward off the opioid-related deaths. Last year, the Maine Department of Health and Human Services denied a petition drafted by a medical marijuana caregiver requesting to add opioid addiction to the state's list of qualifying conditions, citing the lack of rigorous human studies and the lack of any safety or efficacy data. Here's some safety data for you, dude. How many people have died from your methadone? How many people have died from Suboxone? How many people have died from morphine or any other way that methadone's the number one thing that you get people off of heroin with. Suboxone, you get people off of the opioids and the fake synthetics. Well, what about marijuana? How many deaths have ever been attributed to marijuana? 0. Compare that to all those other things I just mentioned. Methadone is one of the biggest killers as far as the synthetics goes. I mean, there's only so many synthetics, all right? People are dropping dead from these pills every day. Every day. While I made this clip, there's probably 2 overdose deaths today while I'm talking about it. And yet they keep coming down on marijuana like there's some kind of reason we should be cautious about it. Oh, we got to have more data. We don't know if it's safe or not. Yeah, we fucking do. It's safe. It's very safe. No one's ever died from it. And nobody mentions the paper, the 395-page report that the National Academy of Sciences just put out this year that basically said the gateway theory is bullshit. Because you know what does lead people to opioid addiction? Little pieces of paper that doctors hand you. And then this article goes on to talk about the the same, rehab center, Shrakes, with the getting people off of their opiates with marijuana. And then we go to, as thousands of people in Massachusetts have already been using cannabis as a replacement for prescription opioids, Integrate Health, a Maine-based medical marijuana physician's practice, has been reporting an uptick in patients using marijuana to manage chronic pain. A 2016 study published in the Health Affairs Journal supports the trend, finding that Medicare patients received fewer prescriptions for pain and other conditions between 2010 and 2013 as states adopted medical marijuana laws. Quote, we're finding strong evidence that approving medical cannabis can be effective in preventing people from using opiates, says Dr. David Bradford, a health economist at the University of Georgia who published the findings with his daughter, a master's student, Ashley C. Bradford. The research duo expects to publish a follow-up study in the summer that has, quote, promising results supporting marijuana's replacement of prescription drugs among Medicaid patients. Quote, the clinical community has passed the reefer madness stage, added Dr. Bradford. Opioid addiction is killing over 600 people a week. That's more than 2 747 planes crashing every week. There's no single solution to that problem, but we haven't really seen the beginning of the deaths that are rooted in this country, and anything we can do to slow that down, we just have to take advantage of. Let's not forget, in 2015, I believe it was 50,000 people total died from opioids and heroin put together. That's the same thing as all the people that died from America in the Vietnam War. And man, that was shit people talked about for 40, 50 years. What? How come there's no outrage? How come no one's mad at these doctors that are prescribing all these pills? Well, I guess they started getting mad at them, and now the heroin's coming in twice as fast. So how come no one's getting mad at us for fucking we're in Afghanistan protecting the poppy fields so that the heroin trade gets to go on without missing a beat. And it's been doing that ever since we took over it from the Taliban back in 2001. That's a fact, man. That's not a conspiracy theory. Look into it. We're still there making sure that the poppy fields get grown and that they get harvested. And then when that gets done, they get processed into heroin right there in Afghanistan. And then they just ship the heroin out, and we guard the damn the lines of distribution for it to get out of there to Europe and wherever else it goes. I mean, that's not the only reason we're in Afghanistan. There's also a shitload of minerals that we're stealing, and we're trying to build a pipeline or two, but that's one of the main reasons we're in Afghanistan, people. The heroin trade and the opioid trade overall is a multi-billion-dollar worldwide, market. And, of course, the powers that be in the United States, they use that. That's their money. That's the CIA. They've been doing this shit since they took it from the French in Vietnam. The heroin trade. That's not a conspiracy theory either. Look it up. I don't know, man. People just don't believe any of this shit. Well, there's one other thing that we have to do about this story, and that's the Lake County Sheriff's Office in Florida. I hope the volume's okay on this. We're going to try not to hear it too loud here. But, well, let's just go.
I'm Lake County Sheriff Peyton Grinnell. Over the last month or so, I've had several phone calls from citizens in this county concerned about the number of overdoses related to heroin.
All right, now right off the bat, so the people are calling the police department because there's so many deaths because of heroin lately. First of all, let's just look at this layout here. What in the fuck is going on here? I understand that you have heroin problem in your county, but what is this? This looks like a terrorist organization. I'm sorry. This looks like some kind of an ISIS video or something. This is an intimidation video. Who's it aimed at? How is this going to help in the wake of the heroin epidemic, the opioid crisis that this country, and especially Florida, especially your state? What kind of a product? How is this being productive? How is this helping? What is this doing? You know what this reminds me of? The 1980s or something, like when George H.W. Bush or Ronald Reagan got on TV and was talking tough about marijuana. I remember George H.W. Bush was like, "You think we don't have room for you in prison for marijuana offenders? Well, we're going to make room." And this guy here, he's saying that about the heroin dealers, all right? But is he saying that about the doctors that wrote all the prescriptions for all the opioids in Lake County? What about that? You going to go after them? Because they're the ones, all the people you're talking about that are on heroin right now, that have to go to these heroin dealers that you think you're being tough with your 1980s looking bullshit. They don't give a fuck about that. They don't care about you getting tough. Nobody does. They're just scared, and they're doing what they do because they're addicted to it. You're talking to the heroin junkie that's cowering in the corner, basically. Oh, this is disgusting. This isn't in no way, shape, or form is this productive. And if this is what you call tough enforcement or getting tough on crime or being, the law and order, you're using a fucking jackhammer to hammer a thumbtack into the wall. This heroin epidemic needs to be handled completely different than what you're doing here. You need to look at it in terms of a public health crisis, not a criminal situation. These people that are selling the heroin bags aren't millionaires. And when you do go after those street-level heroin dealers, you're not doing anything to stop the epidemic that started at the doctor's office with a fucking piece of paper saying someone could get some Vicodins. And it ended with somebody addicted to heroin because, well, for one, you guys changed the rules on them, and now it's not so easy to go get those Vicodins. Now it's not so easy to go get that fentanyl patch. Now, when you go buy that fentanyl patch from the drug dealer on the street, it costs so much damn money. You're like, what the fuck? I can't afford that. What just happened here? The insurance companies was paying for these. It seemed like they weren't costing nothing. Now all of a sudden, you know, you want to go get a oxycodone pill, Oxycontin or whatever. You know, one little tiny pill is going to cost you $50. You know what happens then, right? The heroin is much, much cheaper than these opioid pills and these other synthetic products that the manufacturers are just cranking out into the streets.
I want our citizens to know that I am aware of this serious issue. I am asking our residents to please call and let us know if you know of a location that this poison is being pushed out to our streets.
Hey, jackass, don't you think they already did that? Don't you think people that really, you know, thought that it wasn't dangerous to call the cops on their neighbor for selling heroin? They probably already called them.
You can remain anonymous.
Sure.
To the dealers that are pushing this poison, I have a message for you. We're coming for you.
All right, I liked how they're doing the zoom in on this one. He was a little late with the zoom in cue, and he's a little shaky with the zoom button. So you can tell this was produced really shadily, just like an ISIS video in a cave or something. But what is this message here?
As a matter of fact, our undercover agents have already bought heroin from many of you.
Really?
We are simply awaiting the arrest warrants to be finalized.
Come on, man. This video was made like 3 or 4 days ago. I mean, it already went viral on the internet. So how come I haven't heard about these massive arrests in Lake County of all these heroin dealers that you already bought heroin off of and already have warrants getting printed up and signed? Where's these arrests at, buddy? This tough-talking, crazy, militant-style-looking terrorist messaging bullshit, it didn't work in the 80s, and guess what? Now there's more heroin than there ever was before, and there's actually lower prices and higher purity, too, to go along with that. So this shit you're doing right here is the exact reason why it still sucks out there, why there's still so much heroin everywhere, and why it's still so profitable. Oh, did I say the wrong thing? Yeah, heroin is very profitable because of people like you. And if you want to get to the heart of the heroin problem, you need to talk to the U.S. government and ask them why we still have fucking funding for troops to guard opium plantations in Afghanistan, where they produce 90% of the world's heroin. Why don't you get to the root of the problem by going to that? I mean, you can bust all the street-level heroin dealers you want, dude, and they're just going to pop up new ones the next day. So keep talking tough, keep spinning your wheels, and keep wasting taxpayers' money while the heroin epidemic just continues to go on without missing a beat.
So, to the dealers I say, enjoy looking over your shoulder, constantly wondering if today's the day.
They already do that. When you sign up to sell heroin, you already know what you sign up for, dude. So you're not telling anybody anything new about their job.
Come for you. Enjoy trying to sleep tonight, wondering if tonight's the night our SWAT team blows your front door off the hinges. We are coming for you.
Most of these heroin dealers probably don't even have front doors to get blown off the hinges of.
If our agents can show the nexus between you, the pusher of poison, and the person that overdoses and dies, we will charge you with murder.
So are you talking about all the doctors that wrote all those prescriptions? You're going to charge them with murder as well? That'll be interesting. You know, you can't handle this problem like this anymore, tough guy. It's no longer one of those problems that's isolated in the inner city to the minority community that you already want to crush with your authoritarianism and your unconstitutional policing. But now it's in the white community. Now the people that are these heroin addicts they used to get their Oxycontin and all that other stuff. They used to get that for pretty much free from the insurance companies. But once all that got cut off, then they're in the streets. These are people that are middle class white people. So you're going to have to, obviously, you're not going to kick in some doctor's office door and charge them with a crime because somebody at the Lake County Hospital ended up at the Lake County morgue because they had too many fentanyls. So, I don't know. All right, that's all I got on this video.
We are coming for you.
You are
Run.
coming for us. Run, he says. I'm not including myself with the heroin dealers. But one thing I wanted to say about that is...
I'm Lake County Sheriff Peyton Grinnell. Over the last month or so, I've had...
No more. But anyway, they used to do all this tough talk shit like that, but it wasn't about heroin. It was about marijuana. This is a new trend, is they had to stop saying marijuana and start saying heroin, because heroin is the new marijuana as far as enforcement goes. They can't use the same talking tough points that they do here with the heroin on marijuana anymore, because everybody knows that it's bullshit. All right, you want to know the real truth about opiates? You just have to go to the Center for Disease Control's website. They'll tell you every day 1,000 people end up in the emergency room because of opiates, because they use their prescription wrong. Out of them, quite a few of them die. Matter of fact, in 2015, 15,000 people died from overdoses involving prescription opioids. That's not just somebody on the street that bought it. That's the person with the prescription. Most common ones were methadone, oxycodone, and hydrocodone. Of course. Fentanyl didn't make that list because it's a synthetic. But believe me, as you can see here, it's not doing too bad as far as racking up the numbers. Heroin was getting passed by the synthetics, and eventually, heroin spike kept going back up because of ever since 2001, look at, heroin's been doing nothing but going up. That's when we took the heroin industry over in Afghanistan from the Taliban.